In this video, I'm going to talk about all the new stuff that we just learned about Necromunda and what it might mean for the future. So I'm filming this pretty early. These videos generally go live on Friday. This is the previous Saturday, but I have to go on a trip. I have to go teach people how to paint miniatures at this event. And by the time I get back, when you see this video, I'll be back already, but I had to film ahead of time. So being Saturday, yesterday was the day that Games Workshop had one of their big preview hootenannies online and talked about all kinds of different stuff. Now, I didn't watch it live. I didn't really watch most of the presentation. The only part of the presentation that I was interested in was the Necromunda part. So I went to onto YouTube and kind of scrubbed along until I found the parts about Necromunda. We had heard that there was going to be a new version of Necromunda coming. There were these kind of, let's call them hints, let's call them leaks, things like that. I made a video reacting to some of the leaks and talking about things that I'd like to see in a new Necromunda. I made that video, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. Pachow. So if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. But what I want to do here is kind of quickly go over a bunch of the different stuff that they said and kind of talk about like what I think it might mean, because we honestly don't have a ton of information. We've got some things, but we don't have very much in the way of concrete. They showed off a new box, they showed off some new books, but we don't know a lot about them specifically. I've got notes here on my phone and whatnot. Quote, essentially an edition reset for Necromunda. Adam Troke, I believe his name is. He's a nice guy. I've met him in the past at like Adepticon and shows like that. He's evidently the big fan of Necromunda amongst the two guys in the live stream. And so he was doing most of the presentation. And from what he said, quote, essentially an edition reset for Necromunda. So when people talk about how Necromunda doesn't seem to go on the 3-year cycle, like a lot of the regular Games Workshop games do, maybe this is going to be one of those things. They talked about a couple of different things, and I don't know how much of a change this is going to be, but we'll talk about that in a sec. They're launching a new 2-player battle box, which they're calling the Core Set, and they're changing the name. It's technically Necromunda Skirmish now, where it used to be, I think, always Necromunda Underhive was the official name, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that. Again, they're launching with Goliath versus Escher. If I'm perfectly honest, those are my two least favorite gangs. And I know that they must be very popular because that's what they always launch with when they launch a new big box and stuff like that. But for me personally, I've never been a super big fan of either of those groups. Now, the thing that's interesting is these are also completely new sculpts. Back in 2017, they launched with Goliath and Escher, and those obviously were new sculpts. And then new sculpts for all the different gangs came along and all that kind of stuff in comparison to back in like 1995 or whatever, when original, obviously, Necromunda came out. But there haven't really been much in the way of new sculpts since 2017. New things have come out, new hangers-on, new groups, corpse grinders, Palatine enforcers, stuff like that. Palatine? Palanite? I can never remember. But the trick is that these models now, these new Goliaths and these new, what do you call them? The Eschers, they're completely new sculpts. And they showed those off in the thing, and they're fine, they're cool and everything like that. But they also showed off these other boxes as well, but I'll get to that in a second. The box is going to come with a gaming mat, which looks like it's a paper mat, which is kind of interesting. In the past, they've done boards, like chipboard, thick chipboard, hardboard, depends on who you talk to. This is paper, as far as I can tell. Now, it does say in the Warcom article that it is double-sided. They didn't mention that I remember seeing in the video, but it is double-sided, so that's something. Also, they're going to be coming out with some terrain that's going to be in that box as well. It looks like a lot of pipes and stuff like that. Doesn't look like a lot of stuff, frankly. Now, that's fine to some degree. But in the pictures that they showed of like the board and the models and the whole deal, it looks really sparse, like really, really sparse. So We don't know how big that mat is. We can make some guesstimates, maybe, I suppose, but I think if there was going to be more terrain in that box, they would have put all of it on the board to try to flesh it out a little bit, but it looks a little anemic. But again, if that helps the box cost less, then that's fine too, because a lot of us already have terrain and it's fine. Honestly, I'm wondering if maybe the mat's just not kind of a cheap afterthought. They're like, let's not spend a bunch of money on a hard, hard two-sided board, because honestly, not only is it an extra expense for manufacturing, it's also an extra expense for shipping. Those boxes get considerably heavier when you put that hardboard in there, especially if you want to make it a good size. So potentially they were like, we want to make it a starter so that you can start playing, and pretty much everything else you need's in there: tokens, dice, rulers. They showed off all that stuff. The templates are still in there, so they haven't changed the rules that much, evidently. But I'm wondering if they were like, we'll slip this mat in there so we can call it a, two-player starter right out of the box and you can get playing. And technically, yes, you can, but, like I said, tokens, dice, rules, templates, all that kind of stuff. There's also going to be gang tactics cards, and there's also going to be campaign cards included in that box, and also the hardback, hardcover book, the new book, which I'll mention a little bit in a sec here. All that stuff's going to be in that box, but a lot of that stuff's going to be able to be bought separately. The book is going to be sold separately if you want it. The cards are going to be sold separately. I don't know about the tokens. They didn't say anything like that, like the tokens and templates and all that kind of stuff. If you've been playing Necromunda for a while, you probably have some of that stuff. Now, another thing that they're also talking about are these new crew boxes that are going to be coming soon as well. So currently, when you want to buy models for Necromunda, you buy a gang box, and they generally cost these days about $53 American, and they will have a Cawdor gang, and they'll have a Orlok gang, or a Dalak gang, or Vansar, or whatever, and it's, I don't know, what, 7, maybe 8 models total. And then, different ways you can build them in different bits and stuff like that. And you get a bunch of bits left over. I own a bunch of those boxes because they're just great for kit bashing, frankly. But what they're going to be doing is launching these new crew boxes, which from the looks of it, they didn't talk a lot about it in the video, nor did they talk a lot about it in the Warhammer community article. But it looks like what they're doing is they're taking a gang box, let's say like for the Cawdor gang box, and then they're also adding in the Redemptionist box. So you're getting a bigger box that's literally just got 2 boxes in it. I mean, I'm sure it'll just be the sprues. They won't put a box inside of a box. That would be kind of weird. But so yeah, just some of them I was able to identify. The Cawdor crew has the Cawdor gang box and the Redemptionist box. Orlok crew is the Orlok gang box, and the Orlok's Arms, Masters, and Wreckers box. Vansar crew is the Vansar gang box, and the Vansar Archaeotechs and Grav Cutters box, right? Like, buying all these boxes right now separately, they each cost $53. So technically, these things should cost $106. Now the question is, will they cost $106? Will they cost a little bit cheaper than that? Most likely not. Or will they cost a little bit more? Is this one of those stealth price hikes? The other big question I have is this: am I still going to be able to buy a Cawdor gang box? Or are the crew boxes the only things that they're going to keep in stock going forward? Meaning you have to buy the box that's got the Cawdor guys in it, and then also the the Redemptionists. And maybe you don't want more Redemptionists. Maybe you already have a box of Redemptionists. So it'll be very interesting to see how they go forward with this. I've got to be honest, it's a smart move to some degree to make these boxes where you get enough stuff like right from the get. But the price will be really important, and also to me personally, it'll be really important to see whether or not they produce like more stuff. You know what I mean? Like, are they gonna do it so that we can keep doing the whole thing, with the actual army boxes, like these crew boxes, or can we buy the gang boxes separately? Now, the new book, like I mentioned, is going to come in the core set, but you'll also be able to buy it separately from what they say, which is great. I think that's nice. Quote, revised. They've made updates to the rules, sort of streamlined things. Every roll feels like it really matters. unquote. End quote? Whatever. The word role there, I am unclear whether Adam meant every role matters, aka juves, gangers, leaders, etc., or roll like dice roll. You know what I mean? Either way is good, so maybe he meant both. You know what I mean? But it's interesting to say that. But yeah, the revised makes me think that it's not going to be a huge change. They've made updates to the rules, sort of streamlined things. Again, these are direct quotes. So I don't know how drastically things are going to change in the rules. It'd be nice if things change a bit, but I have a suspicion they're going to do the normal 40K thing where they're like, hey, we made updates and changed things, and the things are relatively a little bit here and there. When I talked about, in the last video I talked about drastic changes and how, 40K never makes any drastic changes since like 5th edition, at least within my recollection, because I started playing in 5th edition. And some people came back and they said, well, this is a drastic change and this is a drastic change when they went from this edition to this edition. And I have to say, I kind of disagree. If you want a drastic change, there's a drastic change going from Warhammer Fantasy Battles to Age of Sigmar. That's what I would consider drastic. There was a drastic change going from Kill Team 2018 to Kill Team 2021. All of the stats were completely different. Not even just like we changed the numbers, the categories are different. The way you build armies is completely different. Everything was a huge drastic change between 2018 Kill Team, 2021 Kill Team. That's what I consider to be a drastic change. Going through and, taking out the psychic phase, I don't know if that's necessarily within the grand scope of, say, 40K, a drastic change. So we'll see what kind of drastic change happens here in Necromunda. And he didn't say drastic. Revised. They've made updates to the rules, sort of streamlined things. Every roll, either roll or roll, feels like it really matters. That would be nice to see some sort of change, but we'll see how it goes. Now, there's also 2 other books that they've mentioned that'll be coming, although they didn't mention when. To be fair, we don't know any of this stuff is coming out, actually. That has not been released in any way that I've seen so far. And again, I'm filming this the day after the release, so by the time this comes out, maybe they'll have made some announcements. But these 2 books that are coming along are going to be called The Gangs of the Underhive and Gangs of the Outlands. And basically, rather than having all the different books, like, hang on, I've got the House of Artifice right here, okay? So rather than having a separate book for kind of every gang, put that down. Instead, they're going to have one book that's basically for the base kind of gangs, Orlok, Escher, Van Saar, Dalak, yada, yada, those guys. And then the Outlands book is more for probably corpse grinders and ash wastes and the dwarf guys or whatever, and like all those other kind of outsider sort of things. Having it into 2 books is not bad. That's better than having it into, half a dozen or more. But again, we'll see. They did also mention, though, where did I see that? From the Warcom article, with the new edition, the rules in older publications will be getting replaced. So all your books, like this one and others, are no longer going to be good in this new edition. So then the question becomes, if these books are no longer good in the new edition, how drastic or not are they making the streamlining and changing the rules? I'm looking forward to finding out, to be honest with you. Let me see here. Pick up the core rulebook, pick up the gangs of the book that you need, and you are good to go with Necromunda Skirmish. Again, that's a direct quote from Adam. So, it sounds like you're going to need at least one of those 2 gangs of books, unless if you get the core box, I'm betting that they're going to give you the stats for the stuff that's in the box. So I guess but if you're playing anything else, it sounds like you're going to need the new core book and at least one of those 2 books. And if you're a person who's got like Caudor and Ash Wastes guys are your favorites, then you're going to need both. But, that's, again, if you get into GW, get ready to buy books. Like I said, the core gang tactics cards and the campaign and scenario cards will also be sold separately. They sound kind of like nice to haves. I don't know that they're requirements. I would expect that most of that stuff is probably in the book as well, but we'll see. There's also new terrain. Like I mentioned, there's like these new pipes and stuff like that are in the core box, but there's not a lot of them, at least in the pictures they've showed. There's also going to be a completely separate box, which is going to be called Zone Mortalis Factoria Pipes. And it looks like it's got more stuff. Like just on the cover, there's pieces that you don't see in the pictures, where they were showing the core box. So that's cool. I love the Zone Mortalis stuff. I have a bunch of it, and I'm continuing to build more. So I'm looking forward to that. Another quote. If you've never played Necromunda before, this is really a perfect jumping on point, which is, good. And then another quote, the rules have been tweaked and streamlined. So we're talking again about not rewritten from the ground up, probably not a huge change, tweaked and streamlined. Again, we don't know yet. Hopefully we'll find out eventually, but we'll see. Also, one of the last things that is from the Warhammer community post, talking about these crew boxes. They each come with a selection of fighters, including leaders, champions, gangers, and prospects, and have a weapons and upgrades frame, so you have more choice of equipment. Now, if that's the case, if it's going to include basically both boxes, right? So you've got a ganger box and then, an extra box being like, let's say with the Caudor, you get the Caudor gang box and you get the Redemptionist, right? And then if they're also going to throw in basically a Caudor or Redemptionist, or maybe both, upgrade sprue, which they sell those separately as well in little smaller boxes. I've got a bunch of those because they're great for kit bashing. If they're going to throw one of the two of those sprues in there as well, then they definitely won't be selling it for $106. They won't be just selling it for 53 plus 53. They'll be selling it for more because you're getting more stuff, which at that point I get. It'll make sense to some degree. So yeah, well, it'll be real interesting to see how that all works. What does this all mean? That's my last note here. What does this all mean? For me personally, I'm interested again, cautiously, very cautiously optimistic. Maybe optimistic is a strong word, but I'm not against the idea. I'm looking for some sort of thing that adds on to Necromunda, or something that updates Necromunda. I would love it to be even more streamlined. We will see how streamlined they mean by streamlined and revised. But at the very least, if it reduces the amount of books that you need to buy, that's maybe some benefit. Again, if you've been playing and now you decide you want to play some more, you're going to need to buy some more books. New core book and at least one of the new gang books. But there's only 2 gang books, at least to start. We'll see how things go down the road. I guess it all depends on sales a little bit. So, like I said, cautiously kind of optimistic over here at the Tabletop Minions camp. I'm glad that it doesn't currently look like they're going to tweak a whole bunch of the rest of the sculpts. Again, new sculpts for Escher and Goliath, and it looks like their crew boxes, at least from what I can find in the sort of blurry pictures that are on the website, it looks like their crew boxes are basically the new sculpts and then a box of the old sculpts. I can't tell what, because in the pictures they show like the gang in the front and then the like add-on part sort of a little bit further back in the image. And so some of them you can go like, oh, that's obviously the Redemptionists and that's obviously the, whatever. But not all of them. So I'm not sure what they're doing with the crew boxes for Escher and Goliath, but it's pretty obvious what they're doing with the other crew boxes. And I think it's probably a smart move for them to not go through and change all of the models, partially because the models are already pretty great and also because it's a huge amount of money to make all new molds for 6, 7, 8, 10 different, gangs, right? Now, the thing that we don't see in the crew boxes so far are stuff like the Enforcers, Corpse Grinders, Ash Wastes, the Dwarves, like all that stuff, the Squats, whatever you want to call them. They don't have any of that stuff in there. So they're on the cover. There's definitely the Squats on the cover of the Outcasts book. So it's not like they're getting rid of them, but I bet they might not get a crew box. Maybe they will down the road. It's hard to say. But for at least sounding like at launch, these crew boxes will be designed to make it a little easier for you to get into the game, I guess. But at a higher cost, but you're getting more stuff. We'll see how it all shakes out. So yeah, I don't know. like I said, I got to travel, so I needed to make a kind of a quick video. And I also thought it was important for me to kind of react to this Necromunda stuff, because right now, like, Necromunda is the only Games Workshop game that I'm even vaguely interested in. So this could help rekindle for me. Maybe it will also rekindle for you. I don't know. What do you think about this news? Do you have any ideas about what's going to happen? Do you have any opinions about what they've already said? Let us all know down in the comments below. And if you like weird quickie videos like that from the office, I was going to do it at the studio, but the farmer's market was downtown and it's really loud, and so I just did it here because I had to get it done in time for travel. So again, like that button, if you do some depressmentation on it, that would be great. Also potentially the hype button on mobile. There's also a subscribe button if you're into that kind of thing. And that's pretty much about it. Comments in the comment area below. Thanks for watching.